Hi there, my name is Ewan Nicholson. Welcome to my YouTube channel, Remembering Love. Today we're going to be looking at an interesting and different topic. It's going to be a little bit abstract, but if you just kind of hold on and bear with me, I think you'll enjoy where we get to and what we explore. And today's subject is how experiencing our observing self supports or helps and heals our childhood trauma. So let's have a look at what that is and what that means and how it's relevant for anyone in this healing journey. Now, when we look at the question of what is the observing self, we have to then look at what is self. What is it to be me? And obviously this is going to be a short video, so this is more of a taster or a little bit of a very kind of basic introduction into the understanding of what it is to be aware of oneself, the part of us that is aware of oneself, our awareness, and how that is linked to the healing process of childhood trauma. So there is enormous tomes of literature, modern, ancient, on this topic of the self which observes, or the witnessing self, or the observing self, or awareness itself. There's a lot of non-dual teachings, there's a lot out there. So I'm not going to do that justice in a few minutes, but I can give you a little bit of a kind of a pointer in, certainly what that's meant for me, how I understand it, and how it's helped me heal and how it helps to continue to help me heal my own childhood trauma. So what I'm going to be using in this little video is the reference book, which is the book called The Observing Self by Arthur Dykman, Mysticism and Psychotherapy. And I'll just use this as a very basic kind of reference point for this video. And what I'm going to try to break the book down in its most simplest forms, but what he really talks about is how in a modern contemporary understanding of self is divided into three areas, which is this thinking self, which is obviously the part of who we are that thinks, conceptualizes, has ideas, imagination, planning, memory, all the stuff that goes on in our thinking process. There's our emotional self, the part of us that feels, that gets angry, that gets sad, that gets happy, etc. All of our experience of emotions. And then he calls what's called our functional self. And our functional self is our physicality, the things we do, the actions we take, sleep, moving, everything that involves the functionality of our physicality. And he kind of groups these three things together, and that what he calls the object self, which is the self that's contained within this object of my physicality. And all that put together over X period of time, and my relationship between that self and my environment creates me, myself. And that would probably be most people's sort of understanding of who am I? Well, I'm my memories, I'm my thoughts, I'm the things I do. And it's a very philosophical question, and I'm certainly not going to try to answer that here. But using this kind of Dykman's book, that's his understanding of the object self. And what he explores is that in mysticism, there's a fourth dimension or a fourth self that he calls the observing self. And the observing self is that part of us that is aware of all these things. So it's not these things, it's not our thoughts, it's the part of us that's aware that we are thinking. It's not our feelings, it's the part of us that we're aware we are angry. We are aware that we're happy. When we're getting to sleep or we're walking somewhere, we're aware that we're doing that. And the awareness of our walking isn't our walking. The awareness of our fear isn't our fear. The awareness of our thinking isn't our thinking. So what he explores in is how that essence of our awareness is a self that can be experienced, understood, and widens our experience of who we are. And that aware self is the most personal self. It's the self that comes before everything else, that holds everything else. And when it comes to the process of healing childhood trauma, what my experience has been is that as I've had moments or I develop a deeper and more experiential understanding of my observing self, it helps discharge the intensity of my identification or this feeling of that I'm lost in a particular experience of thinking and feeling. Because what occurs on my day-to-day life is I'm caught a lot of the time between feeling things that I don't want to feel and trying to hold on to feelings that I do want to feel. So there's this experience of an emotion, let's say it's anxiety, and then in addition to that anxiety, I have a sense of I don't want to be experiencing that anxiety, and there is this tension between what I'm experiencing and what I do or don't want to be experiencing. And what self-observation as a practice can do is it can help separate me from the immersion of that moment, where as I observe I'm feeling anxious, that observation of my anxiety isn't trying to change it. It's not trying to be more relaxed or less relaxed. It's just observing it, being aware that this is what's actually occurring, being mindful of this is the experiencing that's happening without judgment or without direction or instruction. And that is a really powerful experience. And obviously it's harder to do in more extreme feelings. And on one level, it's easier to observe myself brushing my teeth than it is getting irritated with my teenage daughter, for sure. But you have to start somewhere, and you have to start with the basic things to begin with. But the practice of self-observation, of what my understanding of what it is to be mindful, not in the sense of sitting down on a meditation cushion and practicing mindfulness, but to be mindful throughout my day, to observe myself and not be lost in the experience of what's occurring, has helped discharge some of the intensity of what I feel. It loses some of its hold. But more importantly, it gives me a deeper experience of who I am. That who I am is not just what I think and what I feel, which ultimately is transitory. What I think and feel comes and goes, and it kind of moves around. The experience of self is wider than that sort of immersed experience of thinking, feeling, and functionality. As I said, there is a lot written about this. There is a lot studied of ancient literature and contemporary literature. There's a lot of non-dual teachings about the awareness of awareness, the awareness of presence. And I'm not going to be going into that today, but I'd just like to share with you that this has been a very formative and important part of my healing journey, is developing my experience of my observing self. So what I'd like to do is just share with you Deichmann's definition, or very brief explanation of what he defines as the observing self. We have learned to interpret the thinking, feeling, and functioning selves as expressions of an object self. Thus, their activity supports and strengthens the object self and the mode of consciousness organized to serve it. But in considering the fourth dimension, the observing self, we come to a phenomena on a different order. The observing self is the transparent center, that which is aware. This fourth self is most personal of all, prior to thought, feeling, and action, for it experiences these functions. No matter what takes place, no matter what we experience, nothing is as central as the self that observes. In the face of this phenomena, Descartes' starting point, I think, therefore I am, must yield to the more basic position, I am aware, therefore I am. The most important fact about the observing self is that it is incapable of being objectified. The reader is invited to try locate that self to establish its boundaries. The task is impossible. Whenever we can notice or conceptualize is already an object of awareness, not awareness itself, which seems to jump a step back when we experience an object. Unlike every other aspect of experience, thoughts, emotions, desires, and functions, the observing self can be known but not located, not seen. So as I said, that is just a little bit of a taster, a little bit of a feel of the observing self. All I can share with you is in my healing journey, experiencing and developing a sense of my observing self, of being aware of my awareness, has helped me a lot. It is something that's really kind of hard to get your head around at first. I still have trouble getting my head around it. And if I'm trying to get my head around it, I'm generally not kind of in it, which is a difficult thing itself to get your head around. But, you know, I would encourage you to have a look, explore. I'll put some links for some different places that explain it in a little bit more detail. But if you're in this journey of healing childhood trauma, experiencing yourself outside of the limits of just our thoughts, feelings, and actions is an interesting experience. And it's an experience that widens and deepens this understanding of who we are. Hope you've enjoyed this. Hope this has made sense. If you do, please like and subscribe, and take care and look after yourself. Bye-bye.